we gonna do?
Grim. That's how it looks.
I'll take Grim right now.
I am the Grim Reaper.
It's Grim.
The bosses are good.
And make it grim.
A grim tale indeed.
It's a little grim.
Meaningless and grim.
It's the Grim.
It's Grim.
Pretty grim, huh?
Things look grim.
Hello.
Hello.
Try something a little different and do a review on the live stream channel. Let me just see if I've got any suitable music. I can't play that one because it keeps getting claimed. So
If you use the cyberpunk soundtrack and not the actual, music,
Let me see what I've got here. No, that's too pling plonky.
yeah.
Some dance pop music. Two.
Oh, not that one. No,
No. Okay.
no, that's too porn.
Nope.
No, we really should have set this up ahead of time.
We should have done. Yeah. Sorry for being organised. No.
Oh,
That's
very
like
urban.
Bankish. Right, let's drop it down way low in the background, just so it's there. All right. So today we are taking a look at Cities Without Number by Kevin Crawford.
Yay!
Drink.
Drink.
Let me see if I can straighten that up a bit. Okay, you're the big fan, so tell us a bit of background about Cities Without Number and Kevin Crawford.
Well, Kevin Crawford has been making all kinds of games for a while, and mostly they are kind of retro clone. And I almost hate to say the word OSR these days because it seems like it's a bad word, but yeah, they're largely retro clone OSR type things, or they're based around it. But what is nice is he puts his own unique spins on them by creating some original systems to work within them that make them actually a lot more fun to play again and usable. And what was nice about Cities Without Number is he kind of took it to a new level by creating a class that isn't really a class. It is basically a framework within which you can build whatever kind of character you like based around the character's professions and skills and races if that's necessary. Because one of the neat things that he did that balances out the games really, really well is he actually has race as a job function or a skill function, so that it actually costs you to play a race as much as it does any other class or profession. So in a way, it's a little bit riffing on BX, but it's done in a way that it works better than BX, and it actually works better than D&D, in my opinion, especially with his system shock rolls and everything else. And the cool thing about this particular product is the fact that because it is basically plug-in compatible with all of his other systems, you can plug in Worlds Without Number, you can plug in Stars Without Number, or any of your favorite other, OSR products with this game and make it work. And it is designed in such a way as to emulate other genres or other cyberpunk settings of any kind that you want. And in our case, we played it we actually played Cyberpunk. We played Cyberpunk 2077, the video game. Basically, we used that setting as the basis for our game. And I hate to say it, Artel but he actually kind of beat you on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of loosely old school, I would say. The stats and the way a lot of it's done will be familiar. But there's enough tweaks and things there to keep it kind of interesting. Like, you can spend experience to boost your stat bonuses without necessarily boosting your stat, which seems like a weird sort of decouple. But since you don't really use your stats for anything, it's not so bad. And
that is one thing I actually enjoy about Crawford's systems, is the fact that a lot of the times in most of the modern OSR D&D style games, stats were very, very important. Since 3.0, stats became critically important. He has kind of reduced how effective stats are by changing how many pluses you get on the stats. And then, yeah, he's actually giving you bonuses for the stats, not by having a higher stat.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have an 18, you can still get a +2 or a +3 for having like a strength stat that was high.
Yeah. So it's the compressed scale that's more familiar from old D&D rather than 3rd edition onwards. But you can buy up your pluses, and it has an actual fairly robust skill system, which combines with your stat bonuses. So that's where you get your edge and where your character becomes competent at the things that they do.
And he also brings back the old school hit point creation system, which is the case of every time you get a level, you take all the amount of dice that you have for hit dice. Like, let's say you hit 3rd level, you would roll 3 dice, and you would compare it to your old hit point total. And if the new hit point total is higher than your old hit point total, you keep that. Otherwise, you keep your old hit points, which is kind of a unique way of doing hit points. And I like it because it not only is it fun, but it also kind of helps stop the hit point creep that a lot of the newer systems keep having.
Yeah, your hit dice are generally fairly low. So it doesn't hit point bloat to a drastic degree. I mean, it is still an escalating hit points system, so you do run into that, but it's lessened a bit by the fact that the hit point dice are fairly low and the way in which it goes up as you level. So characters are built from attributes, skills, a background, which gives you certain capabilities. You can do it random or choose. So if you really like your Shadow Dark sort of random character growth, you can use a random table, or you can choose if you want. There's plenty of basic backgrounds, but you can use a lot of stuff from Stars Without Number and so on fairly easily as well. And then edges is where you kind of specialize your character. It's probably the closest thing to a class, but it's mostly a freeform character creation system for the most part.
And one of the things that's kind of different is I have 2 different versions of this book because I was fortunate enough to get 2 different versions. And as you can see, this is the Drive-Thru RPG inner cover. And if you are fortunate enough to get one from Kevin Crawford directly, which you can, you'll see that the interior is blank. Actually, you know what? I may have them backwards. I think this is actually this may actually be the Drive-Thru RPG one. This one might be the Crawford version.
Yeah, I can't remember where I got mine from. It might have been from backing it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah. This is the Crawford version. This is what I remember. In the Crawford's version, he has his tables actually printed into the back cover, which this is something I'm seeing a lot of independent publishers doing, and I absolutely adore this because I tend to like hardback books anyway, or physical media, and having these kind of tables already printed into your book is so helpful. It's better than having a GM screen, really, because you're going to use the book a lot anyway. First company I ever saw that did this was Lamentations of the Flame Princess. So kudos to James Raggi for doing that. And I really love it when publishers do this. So, got to call it a happy thing when it's a happy thing. So yeah, this is the DTRPG version. And this is the copy you can get directly from Crawford.
Yeah.
If he's still selling them.
Probably. The artwork's a mix. There's some AI artwork in here if that's a problem for you, but there's also proper painted pieces as well, like this one. So it's a mix, but if you're going to use AI art, a corporate future dystopia seems like the place to use it. I don't think either of us are pathologically against AI art, are we?
Not really. I use computer graphic art myself, which it's not AI, because I'm the one who's having to actually put everything together. But having seen what AI can do for you very quickly, it's kind of like, I can see why a lot of publishers who can't afford an art budget are doing it.
Yeah. I would always far rather employ people, but like right now, I've got a bunch of expensive house repairs, so I can't afford to blow a load of money on paying artists. So I can either put out a shitty product, or I can make it at least look somewhat presentable by using AI art until I'm in a position to commission. So I think it has its place. I think people who are completely rah-rah, AI art is amazing and wonderful and will change the world are wankers, and the people who are dead set against it at any point and say hyperbolic things like it's theft and so on, I think they're equally dumb. There you go. Combat wise, most of this game is going to be pretty familiar to you. Tackles most of the kind of normal issues you'd have in a modern combat game. The big departure is this system shock idea, where all weapons have like a shock factor, and if that exceeds your shock level, then you take additional damage. So it's not a critical hit, but it's just something that represents both your toughness and the potential horrible harm that a heavy caliber round can wreak as it passes through you. So it kind of puts those together. It does make the game a lot more deadly, but you do still have a chance against it. So it's not just everyone's wiped out straight away necessarily.
Yeah, I like the fact that even though it does have weapons that do what seem to be kind of conventional damages, like, D8 or whatever like that for a gun, that shock system helps bring back how lethal these things can really be. And it puts the fear of guns into people, because it's you realize that if somebody gets lucky with a gun, they can tear you up pretty fast, no matter what your hit points are.
Yeah. I mean, a big problem that was had back during the D20 glut, and more recently with the 5th edition compatible glut, is you have people like emptying their revolvers at each other, stopping to reload, continuing to fire, and they're doing hit point damage. It's just, a character can take so much that it gets ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And as with the whole OSR type hit point games, it's kind of a case of you have no penalties until you hit 0. So
yeah. So it's a bit different. Armor's a bit different as well. So it does boost your armor class, but with some forms of armor, you also get a damage soak. I think that's each combat. It can resist that much damage. So it's a static pool that gets dropped in each combat, and then at the start of the next combat, the damage soak is restored. So each time you get into a firefight, for example, your impact jacket can stop 8 damage. So it can stop one good hit maybe per combat.
And I love the fact that armor actually has a value in this game. And the full book also has a section of archaic armor in it. So let's say you wanted to take things to a different level, and your character's wearing like a museum piece of plate armor. The stats for it are in the back of the book, so you can put that on and find out what it can soak.
Yeah, and still get some sort of benefit from it. So here's some example weapons. So like they're fairly generic, but so heavy pistol normally does 1d8 damage, right? But its trauma dice is 1d6, and if that does enough to do trauma, then the damage is tripled. So that kind of gives you some sort of idea of just how it's like a more common critical hit that's not a critical hit, and can even be more powerful than a critical hit. So
the game does not have a magic system so much, but it does have a magic system because it does have an optional rule for magic users. It doesn't necessarily have magic weapons, but they can be incorporated without too many difficulties. But one of the things it does have is it does have a system of customization for weapons, which can boost their damage, their accuracy, and other things, which usually those are not affordable, like for a first level character. But as you earn money per mission, you can actually change up your firearm and customize it and kind of tweak it to make it more lethal or handle better for you, which is something that's kind of cool, because actually having a boutique firearm system is cyberpunk.
Yeah. That's another thing I think they did wrong in Cyberpunk Red, is the weapons are all very generic and the customization is a bit shallow. It was nicer when you know that because you're using a Malorian arms, it has certain characteristics over another heavy pistol. That's in old Cyberpunk 2020 and so on. That was the case. Each weapon had its own kind of personality, at least a little bit. This is a bit generic, but you can customize the things to such an extent, or tweak the stats to such an extent that you can fairly easily create more individual weapons and cyberware. But the book is really a toolkit for putting together your own cyberpunk style game, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things it does have in the cyberpunk or in the cyberware mod section, and a little bit past that, is there is a section on name brand cyberware. So if you wanted to have like a specific like a specific brand of cyberware that has certain functionality or certain abilities already built into it, it's got a rule system for making that part of the game. It also has rules for putting in cyberware that is secondhand, if that's what you do.
Yeah, not necessarily a great idea.
And yes, Aaron the Relentless, yes, it does have I was going to talk about that, but the game does have a variant leveling system that is really, really awesome and unique, in the fact that instead of your regular XP system, which this game has its own XP system, it doesn't use the standard OSR D&D leveling XP system. It has a cash for levels system in place as well that you can use as a variant, where you have to earn a certain amount of money to get a level, and that is determined by whatever level your character is, and it gives you an amount. and then it also gives you an amount that you earn per mission. So it can actually drive your character to keep going out and doing missions in order to level.
Which is kind of a throwback to XP for gold.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense in a corporate dystopia. I haven't really gotten much into the hacking rules, but the vehicle rules I used with my character in the game that we played, I mean, it's still a problem with vehicles having hit points and not so much subsystems and so on, but at least the amount of hit points makes sense, which they don't in Cyberpunk Red again. And there's a fairly deep customization system for the vehicles, considering there aren't that many stats for them. And as I was playing a sort of vehicle-oriented type, I was able to get free upgrades and things, which made my armored ambulance a lot more capable. So at least the vehicles are covered. Did you read up on the hacking and stuff at all?
I've read up on it a few times, but it's never something that everybody wants to try very much. But as hacking goes, it doesn't seem to take as much time as a lot of the other hacking systems in other games. It does kind of have a mini game element to it, but it's not something that, you know, old Cyberpunk, it used to be pretty much if you wanted to go on a hacking trip, it ended up almost you had to take that character aside to another room and just basically have a little adventure with them in order to hack something. This isn't quite that bad. You can still do hacking at the table.
Yeah, it's still the same sort of issue in that they're essentially in a different place doing different things. I don't particularly like the way Cyberpunk Red did it with the Netrunner having to be on site necessarily, but I do like the micro hacks and things from 2077. You know, that's a reason to have a hacker on site and doing things if they can launch attacks on people's cyberware and directly tap into the security systems and so on. The mini game thing appeals to me, but the problem is that it distracts from the main game with the other players. There must be a solution to this problem somewhere, but I'm not quite sure what it is.
Yeah, and this game does have basically peer-to-peer hacking. So in the same way that 2077 introduced quick hacks, this also has its own version of quick hacks where if you see somebody else that is loaded down with cyberware and you're a hacker, you can attempt to attack their cyberware and shut it down. So there is a system in place for that.
Well, what I used to do was I had the Netrunner card game, and I would set up a data fortress and just have the Netrunner player try and break through the data fortress while the rest of us kept on playing. So that's how I used to handle it.
Something to notice too is my page is turned to the variant humanity section, which is on 224. It has some variant humans already available to you in the game. Okay,
I can blow you up instead. Yeah.
All right, and these are options, but also, as you can see, these are using your foci, which all characters have foci, which is basically their skill sets. You know, if you are an assassin or if you are a netrunner or whatever, you're going to have a foci that kind of goes into that. Well, this system actually incorporates your race as a foci. So baseline, everybody in the game, as all of Crawford's Without Number games, the baseline is everybody is a human. So if you want to play something like an Eloy or a Skyborn, you can. It's just that it will take up one of your jobs, more or less, by doing it. You will get the benefits of having that race, but you won't get the benefits of having your job skills. And And one of the things about a cyberpunk game, as opposed to, any of the other games, is you might be tempted to pick up another race as opposed to a human. But the thing is, most of the time people are playing other races so they can get all the benefits, such as infravision or whatever powers that race gets. Keeping in mind that this is cyberpunk, you can easily take a human and just kit them out with cyberware to get those same effects. So having a drive towards a variant human isn't necessarily as strong in this. But you could, if you really wanted to shadow run your cyberpunk game, you absolutely could. You could grab all the races out of Worlds Without Number, and you could stack them and play them in this if you wish.
I will disown you, but you can.
Yeah.
Keep your elves out of my cyberpunk. Unless it's body modifications for cosplay, then it's fine.
Oh, Aaron, boo the soft C. Foci sounds cooler. Okay, so we'll say foci instead of foci.
Well, you don't say phosis, do you?
Nah, that's true. You say focus. Okay.
Yeah. I've heard people say both, but British English is definitely the standard. Is the hard C.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's a fairly extensive section on making up your own worlds and your own cities and so on. So there's plenty for that. Like I said, it's a toolkit game, really. Punk's always been pretty DIY, so it makes sense that a cyberpunk game would be laid out that way. So it sort of takes you from the world and its history down to the level of the city, down to the level of the districts within the city. Yeah, there's quite a lot of inspiration and ideas here, and random tables if you prefer to do it that way for generating everything from mega corporations to gangs to general NPCs. I tend to find tables repeat too quickly. So, a 1 to 20 to me doesn't seem big enough. Each of these should be a D100 table, in my humble opinion, but at least it's not like a D6 table or something.
There's so many tables. So many tables.
Yeah. It's got some primer stuff on creating and running missions as well, and more random generation there, should you so prefer. Gives you your motivations and all that kind of shit.
And yes, Alex, yeah. The favorite thing about Worlds Without Number games is that even if you don't like the OSR gameplay mechanics, the world building stuff is easily used in other games and helps a lot with inspiration and planning. Yes, exactly. Even if you never ever play any of these Without Number games, Worlds Without Number, Cities Without Number, Stars Without Number, there's so much good stuff in them that you can take these books and they will easily help inspire you in whatever other kind of game you want to play. If you want to play a space game, but you need lots of tables for inspiration, go grab Stars Without Number. If you want to play a cyberpunk game, but you want to have a bunch of tables on hand to generate random gangs or random districts or random mega corporations, Cities Without Number got you covered. Can't say enough good things about this. And while we were testing and playing this, I was actively using a lot of their mission generation systems in order to come up with ideas for what the gang needed to do. So the stuff works.
Yeah, it's definitely a good idea mine. You can pick and pluck all kinds of stuff out of it. Little rules tweaks, the inspiration ideas, examples are helpful. Like you said, there's plenty of random tables, which I think makes it a good setup for a single player game if that's what you're into. You could fairly easily run a game for yourself using the tables to some extent. Might still need an oracle or something alongside it, but it's mostly there.
Mm-hmm. It does have a heat system in there. We did employ it a little bit, but mostly the gang didn't do anything that involved heat. But what heat is let's say you have a group that wants to, oh, well, we're supposed to do this mission stealthy, but instead we're just going to employ the age-old tactic of kill all the witnesses. Right? So if you have a gang that is extremely noisy, causes a lot of collateral damage, or does a lot of stuff that is outside the spec of the job to the point where it can cause repercussions for whatever group has hired them, you gain what's called heat. And heat is a negative influencing factor on your character's ability to do stuff. So if you have heat with a certain corporation, you're going to have minuses that can cause, more groups to spawn in and cause problems for your group, or they may not get as premium jobs, or they could just end up having corporate assassins coming after them directly to take them down because they botched up a job so bad. But our group was pretty nice, so I didn't have to worry about that too much.
Yeah, there is a setting here if you want it, but it's mostly fairly sort of bare bones, and it's just a suitable, fairly generic cyberpunk world for the most part. The idea of corporations creating genders is quite amusing.
Yeah, that's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah. But basically, the idea is that they create identities with particular stereotypical behaviors and presentations and so on, and market them to fill their needs in society, which I guess is kind of a commentary on the rainbowification of otherwise horrendous corporations. At least we're being bombed by a rainbow bomb this time. Yeah, makes all the difference. Cynical corporations. And I guess that kind of ties into some of the stuff we saw in Cyberpunk 2077 as well, that people kicked up a fuss about, like the drinks advertisements and so on. So, yeah, it's interesting and appropriately cyberpunk cynical, I think.
One of the best things about this, though, is the fact that since it is basically toolkit oriented, you are free to take any setting that you want from any existing product, and it will plug into this game with very little problems. Let's say you're not a fan of rolling buckets of D6 for Shadowrun. You can very easily use the Shadowrun setting with this game and just use this system's rules in place of it. Or, like in our case, I am not a big fan of Cyberpunk Red. So rather than using Cyberpunk Red rules, I used the very rich lore of the actual Cyberpunk setting, and I just ran this game's rules instead.
Yeah, so normally you're probably familiar from Cyberpunk with cyberware sort of impacting on your humanity and lowering it. Here, things are a bit more general with different psychoses that can come from all the different modifications you can have to your body. So that's a bit more interesting than just a straightforward humanity loss. The cheap cyber is fun because, like, you can have an arm with malware in it. Things like that, which is an idea I'd already put in something. I can't remember what product it was, but I said, yeah, okay, you can buy a cheap secondhand cyber, but it might be ad locked. So before using this arm gun, please watch this 30-second advert. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just things you can do to dig with people. Cyberpunk 2020 is fine. Cyberpunk Red is okay, but not good enough.
No. Although they did finally release Edge Runners, but it's like, yeah, you're just a couple of years too late there already.
Yeah. It does let you mix in magic and so on. So if you really did want to shadow run it, or there's been some computer games that mix magic or magic-like effects with cyberware and so on. was just playing a game about someone on Mars with kind of weird mutant powers that are kind of like magic but are not. Can't remember what it was. Technomancer, I think it was called. So you could replicate something like that if you wanted more subtle magic. It's just you got to figure it out.
Yeah, and if you wanted to drop psionic powers and stuff like that in there from Stars Without Numbers, it actually goes in pretty easily. I mean, essentially, if you wanted to, you could play a Stars Without Numbers game, and every time you hit a populated area, you could bring out your Cities Without Number book and just roll up your city kind of organically and have a fully fleshed out world and city built up for your characters to explore. It's extremely granular on how deep you want to get on your world building. Yeah, I'm somewhere in that backer list.
Yeah. So I think we've covered all the bases pretty much. So this is where I normally give things a score. So if you want to think what you would give it for style and substance and write it down or keep it in your head, I'll give my view and then you can give yours. All right?
Right.
In terms of style, so it's fairly Spartan on the illustrations. I would have liked a few more. Some of them are a bit, late 90s poser art a little bit. Unfortunately, others are AI. You can feel about that any way you want. Other bits are decent digital art or even traditional painting and so on. It's not particularly consistent, but then this is a toolkit book. What it is readable and easily referenced, which is great at the table. So it makes it an easy book to use. So the presentation is not fantastic, but it's not awful, and it's definitely usable. So in terms of style, then, it's not stylish, it's workmanlike, but, form follows function. So I'd give it a high 3 or a low 4. In terms of substance, you've got everything you need here, pretty much, to make any sort of cyberpunk game you might want to, but it will take work because it's generic. It's not going to have covered a whole bunch of the specifics. So, a middling 4 for substance. I think it could have gone into a bit more depth on customization, different types of cyberware, stuff like that. There could have been more, but you wouldn't want to page bloat it too much more than that. So if I call that 3.5 for style, 4.5 for substance, that's 8 out of 10. If you're okay with OSR derived systems with a few quirks and differences about them, and you want a toolkit, it's great for that. If you want inspiration for your own cyberpunk game under whatever system you're looking to do it under, then also, again, it's a great toolkit for that. So 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10. What do you reckon?
I'm going to say that artwork-wise, it's mostly kind of on the forgettable side. Certainly, I've seen a lot of game books that had absolutely gorgeous artwork. I've reviewed a couple here recently, like UVG and His Majesty the Worm, where I'm pretty much just gushing on every single page, or Identico, where I was pretty much gushing about every single piece of artwork on every single page because it's really nice. But this, largely, you're not going to remember much of the artwork in this, but the book would really suffer if it didn't have something to kind of break up the text. So, artwork-wise, I'd give it about maybe a 3 or a 4. But you're not buying this book because you wanted really great artwork. You know what it is. It's not system-specific or setting-specific. It's generic, so the artwork also kind of feels generic. You get what you want. But as far as the material and stuff in it, it's I might be a little bit biased because I do like Kevin Crawford stuff, but I have to give it high marks for that. So what do you usually scale that at? 1 to 5?
1 to 5.
Yeah, I got to give it a 5 as far as what it contains, as far as material for you to be able to use. Because, one, by itself, it's extremely usable. You don't have to have any other books to make this a permanent addition to your table. But the fact that it is toolkit oriented means that it's very easy to take other books and add them to this, such as, like I said before, Worlds Without Number, Stars Without Number, or any other OSR product that you like better, and make this all work together. So I got to give it maximum marks on that. So I'm going to give it a 5 on that. So I guess overall, going to say about 8.5 total.
Yep. So that's again about 4 out of 5. I'm always too nice with my scores. Well, you know, I don't know that I am necessarily. I'm very stingy with 5s. I hardly ever hand them out. And functionality is important when it comes to looks. So I do tend to bump things up like half a point if they've made sacrifices on the prettiness to make it a usable object, rather than something like Walkborg or Cyborg, which is very pretty and immersive, but it's a pain in the ass to find anything if it's not on the reference sheets in the back. And, if you could reduce your entire RPG down to a couple of reference sheets in the back, it's, you got to wonder whether it's worth it. But, okay. I guess we're done then. What have we got coming up? Tomorrow is...
Dungeons and Discussions. It's our finale.
Yes. What are we talking about?
I'll figure it out.
Talking about something.
We'll talk about something.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm running Tabletopless tomorrow night. If not, I'll be on your Tuesday with Geeks. Perhaps, if I don't decide I need to rest or to work on other stuff. So, with that all said, we'll bid you adieu to year and year. And we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully.
Thank you all for hanging out with us.